Hi, welcome back to Focal Point AAFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Great to have you in the conversation. Speaking of another lie I don't want you to be fooled by, don't let them lie to you. That's one of the consistent themes of this program. Turns out the government shutdown did not hurt the U.S. economy. Remember, we were told when Barack Obama shut down the government, $24 billion hit to the economy. Well, now the Federal Reserve has indicated that the economy continued to grow right through the shutdown. So don't let them lie to you. The government shutdown did not, in fact, hurt the U.S. economy. And sticking with that theme of not letting people lie to you, I want to welcome back to Focal Point a frequent guest on this program, kind of our guru on all things environmental, particularly as it relates to theology and worldview, Cal Beisner, who is the national spokesman for the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation. Cal, welcome back to Focal Point. It's been a while. Great to have you back on.
Thanks very much, Brian. Hey, that's quite a way to be introduced. Speaking of not letting people lie to you, let me give you Cal Beisner.
Yeah, well, because as one thing I love about what you do, Cal, and what the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation does, is you expose the lies that people are being told, particularly about environmentalism, but just kind of theology and worldview in general. And I think that's a key part of what we're about is you not only have to teach the truth, you have to expose the lies that are being circulated out there. Absolutely. And being passed off as the truth. Well, listen, I want to get into a new booklet that you have written in just a second, but I just want to have you comment on a couple of things here. Well, just one thing, really. I'm looking at a story here from Daily Caller, and we've talked about this before, about this whole global warming thing. We know there's been no global warming now for 17 years. But this story features a couple of German scientists who are predicting that because of solar cycles and because of ocean currents and so forth, the oscillations that occur in the Atlantic Pacific, that we may be headed for a century of global cooling. I want to get your reaction to that.
Yeah, right. I haven't seen the Daily Caller story, but I'm betting that you're talking about Fritz Fahrenholt and Sebastian Muning, who are co-authors of a fairly recent book called The Neglected Sun, Why the Sun Precludes Climate Catastrophe. And it just so happens that I'm about halfway through that book myself right now. But yeah, their point, I think, is very well substantiated in the book as they look at all the various different things that influence Earth's temperature. They find, first of all, that carbon dioxide is a very, very minor bit player in all of that. Surely it has some impact, but not much. And human increases in CO2, of course, are a minor bit player in CO2, so they would have an even smaller contribution. But swings in solar output, especially solar magnetic wind and UV radiation from the sun, are much more important, and they link up with oceanic cycles and a variety of other cycles. And because of those, it looks like probably we're headed for at least a few decades, possibly most of this century, of actual cooling instead of warming.
You know, and it makes perfect sense, Cal, and we've talked about this before, sort of the arrogance of humanity thinking that we can control or affect climate or the weather. I mean, Mark Twain said back in the 19th century, everybody talks about the weather, nobody does anything about it.
Yeah.
There's still nothing we can do about climate, still nothing we can do about the weather. And it's just sort of the height of arrogance to think that we would be able to affect climate, which is clearly under God's control. And one of the things I like about what these scientists are doing is they are talking about, this is honest to goodness science. This has to do with solar activity. It has to do with the decadal oscillations in both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. This is genuine, honest to goodness science. And what they're indicating is if we have to make some projections, it's probably going to be in the direction of global cooling, not global warming.
Yeah, and what I would also add, too, Brian, is though, as Mark Twain put it, everybody talks about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. There is something we can do not to control the weather, but instead to be able to adapt to it. What we find is that wealthy societies, in wealthy societies, people can live comfortably and safely and healthfully in whatever kind of weather, whatever kind of climate, from the Arctic Circle to the Sahara Desert. In poor societies, it doesn't matter what kind of weather they have, whether it's tropical paradise or Arctic tundra. Poor people don't have healthy lives. They don't have long lives. They don't have safe lives. And so the real solution to climate change, whether it's going to be global warming or global cooling, whether it's going to be more tornadoes, more hurricanes, fewer tornadoes, more or fewer droughts, or anything else, the real solution is to lift people out of poverty into prosperity, because that prosperity protects them from the weather harms.
Well, let's shift gears to this new booklet that you have written. You did this at the request of our good friends at the Family Research Council. You joined, FRC joined with Concerned Women for America, CWA, as well as the Cornwall Alliance to publish the print edition. It's only 29 pages long, but you say here, Cal, you've written 12 books. You've edited about 30. You've made contributions to another 30 books or so. But you indicate that this may be the most important thing that you have ever published. And the subject of this little booklet, just 29 pages, is social justice. We hear a lot about social justice, and you kind of break down what people really mean when they use that term and some of the fallacies involved in that. And the subheading or title of the booklet is How Good Intentions Undermine Justice and the Gospel. So talk to us about how this concept of social justice actually winds up, and people may pursue it out of good intentions, you acknowledge that, but how in the end it actually undermines genuine justice.
Well, social justice, Brian, really amounts to essentially the notion that we need to equalize, or at least make more equal, everybody's outcome in the society, that there shouldn't be big gaps between rich and poor. That's based on a basically Marxist definition of justice as being as being from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. That's not a biblical understanding. That's a biblical understanding of charity, but it's not a biblical understanding of justice. And so social justice really confuses justice with charity or grace. And by so doing, not only does it result in trying to get government to do things that government isn't supposed to do, like redistribute wealth and try to equalize wealth in society, but it also misleads people about the very meaning of the terms justice and grace. And because of that, since the proper biblical understanding of the gospel depends on understanding the difference between justice and grace, it really obscures the meaning of the gospel. Justice is what people are due. Grace is benefit given where harm is due. If I've stolen something, and rather than asking for the return plus some sort of a punitive addition to that, the person from whom I stole says, "Hey, I forgive you completely, and you may keep what you took." That's grace. It's not justice. But social justice tries to say, hey, we owe everybody an equal share of the wealth in society, and that's just simply not true. But that understanding underlies an enormous amount of the policy that's been adopted by the American federal and state governments over the last 70 years or so that has been very harmful to our economy. More importantly, harmful spiritually to the people who are involved. It tends to make those from whom wealth is taken resentful of that. It tends to make those who don't have the wealth resentful of those who do. And it also undermines the motivation, the incentive to work on the part of those who receive the redistributed wealth. So it's entirely an unbiblical understanding of justice, and it results in government really overstepping its God-ordained bounds.
Well, and you talk in the pamphlet, Cal, about how, if justice is what drives you, then and that's a matter of fairness, like you say, what is due. Then if justice is the goal, then you want a system that rewards producers and does not reward non-producers. Right. Goes to those that deserve, that merit the compensation because of what they're able to produce. But social justice kind of turns that upside down, where now we're in a mode where we are punishing the producers and we are rewarding the non-producers, and that obviously is going to harm the economy. And then, Cal, what you were saying there, and I want to let you know how we can get our hands on a copy of this pamphlet, but what you were saying there at the end, this is the thing that grieves me the most about welfare, is the way it robs people of dignity, the way it cultivates in them this sort of entitlement mentality, this mentality of demand, where they're not grateful for what they get. They're resentful that it's not more. It robs them of self-reliance. It robs them of all of these. Well, it just begins to corrode and corrupt the image of God that's in them.
Yeah, it does, and that's what's really sad, is that a wealth redistributing, a socialist sort of an economy really treats people pretty much like animals. We don't require that our pets work for their supper. We just feed them anyway, and that's because God didn't make pets in his image to be creative and productive as he is. But he did make people in his image, and that's why really when we cut off the incentive for them to be productive, when we make sure that they have plenty to eat, plenty to wear, plenty to live in, plenty to drive, and all of these other things, when we make sure that they have plenty without their doing anything to earn the plenty, we're actually undermining their incentive to develop that aspect of the image of God. It's really quite demeaning and insulting to human nature.
Yeah, and it just it just breaks my heart when I see that, because we played sound bites of these people talking, and these are people obviously that have intelligence, they have ability, and all of that's being wasted. None of it is being utilized. None of it is being developed. These God-given talents that God has woven into their humanity just lying there dormant because people are giving them stuff they don't have to earn. They don't have to work for. Well, Cal, tell us,
Brian, it's that kind of thinking really that underlies the big speech that Obama just gave at the Center for American Progress on income inequality and income mobility.
Yeah,
he's just bought in completely to this whole social justice frame of thinking.
Well, Cal, tell us where people can get their hands on this booklet.
Yeah, best way to do it would be to go to cornwallalliance.org, and then click on the donate button. Anybody who gives any gift of any size to Cornwall Alliance by the end of this month and mentions promo code 1312, that's for 2013, the 12th month, December, will get a free copy of this booklet. Promo code 1312 at cornwallalliance.org. Click on the donate button.
Well, thank you very much, Cal. Always a pleasure, informative to have you on. Cal Beisner, Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation. God bless you.
You too.
Back in 2.
What you